I'm Rob from Really Reviews, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling Roundup. Sorry for our inactivity this past month or so. I'm afraid me and Matt have both been extremely busy in regards to our own lives outside of YouTube. Trying to find jobs and whatnot, and working our current jobs, obviously. It's not been easy. Especially to keep you updated with content, but we are definitely trying to work on that. We're trying to get a new, better camera. At the moment I'm recording this on my iPod. Decent footage at the moment, but it could be better. We want to look a bit more professional, you know. Matt's actually just had his birthday recently, so hopefully with all the money he probably got, he's probably going to get a more decent camera, but we can't promise anything regular just yet. But I thought, just to keep the flow going, I would do a wrestling roundup based on my predictions for Night of Champions. Now, before we go any further, actually, I want to just keep you updated on how SummerSlam went in regards to my predictions for that event. Really should have prepared for this. At the moment I'm looking up SummerSlam on my phone for what actually happened, and then we'll get into Night of Champions. By the way, all the things I promised in the last video about the lists, I mean I'm coming up with new ideas every day about what we're going to do. So I reckon once the floodgates are open and we've got a new camera, there will just be a wave of content coming in. I kind of like that water-based metaphor. Let's see. Oh, yes. I did watch the whole thing, by the way. Rob Van Dam defeated Cesaro. This was the pre-show match for SummerSlam. I caught it about halfway through. I mean, you could tell that they're both very decent athletes. But I predicted that Cesaro was going to win, if I'm not mistaken. And it was actually Rob Van Dam, who was on a bit of a losing streak at the time, so that was my reasoning for thinking Cesaro was going to win. And as far as I know, Rob Van Dam isn't with the company anymore. He's left. He's gone on a brief hiatus, so to speak. I haven't seen him in a couple of weeks on Raw or SmackDown. He's always been one of my favourites, Rob Van Dam. I love his high-flying style, his, cool, laid-back approach. His ring skills are just, I don't think there'll be anything like him, after he retires. As for Cesaro, well, I mean, being a Paul Heyman guy is not exactly working out very well for him, is it? Let's just hope that after Lesnar potentially leaves again, I'll get into that later, he'll be returning to a more upper card status. In what capacity, I've no idea, but we shall see. Dolph Ziggler defeated The Miz. Get in there. I love Ziggler. He's one of the best athletes in the WWE at the moment. He's one of my favourite current wrestlers at the moment. And I was delighted for him, because he definitely deserved, with the skill set he has and the way he takes bumps, the legendary way he takes bumps, the pandering to the crowd, his charisma, he definitely deserved to get some sort of championship, and I'm glad he did. I don't know what I predicted. I think I might have predicted Miz to win, so that was another one out the door. I'm just so glad Miz lost. I really dislike him, and that's not, kayfabe, because he's a heel. I genuinely don't like the guy. I just think his character, the way he's doing his character is he's so annoying, you know what I mean? And I don't know whether to blame WWE for that or him himself, but it's the Hollywood Rock all over again, but with a less charismatic, less talented bloke, So I don't really particularly care for him. We'll get into that later. Paige defeated AJ Lee. Okay, fine. Rusev... No, I'll go into that bit, but... Yeah, it was actually a pretty decent contest. I'm not gonna lie. For a Divas match, I didn't expect much, but as far as I can recall, it was a pretty decent contest. And Paige snuck up with the victory. Good old Paige from the UK, from England, from Norwich. She did it, so that was cool. I must point out the finish, I think, to the match where Miz was going for the skull-crushing finale, and Dolph Ziggler managed to hit the zigzag. I mean, psychologically, I thought it was a great, it kept me on the edge of my seat, certainly. Oh, God. Rusev and Jack Swagger. Sorry for that little pause, you know how I feel about that feud. I'm glad it's sort of over now. I mean, it looks like they've moved on to Jack Swagger's moved on to a feud with Bo Dallas, and Rusev and Mark Henry are now engaged in a feud. But Rusev is still doing the same shtick, it's getting old. It's already getting old, and he's only been doing it since, post-Rumble, I would say. Good God, I really hate this. And he defeated him by knocking him out. Choking him out, I think it was, in a flag match. Why are they making him to be this unstoppable? I have no idea. It's just, he's just a budget, Nikolai Volkov figure to me. But, oh well. Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose in a lumberjack match. This was one of my favourite matches of the evening. It was so good. It was, the intensity, you could feel it. You could feel the blood boiling as Ambrose and Rollins entered the ring. You could feel the animosity that they had towards each other. And they really made it convincing. They really took it to town. I particularly remember a very fine crossbody, I think, from Dean Ambrose to Rollins, where he knocked out virtually half the lumberjacks. And of course, half the lumberjacks were face lower mid-carders, and half the lumberjacks were heel lower mid-carders. So you had your Rybacks, you had your Gold Dusts and Stardusts, you had your, I think Usos were in it, I'm not too sure. Yeah, Usos were in it because they didn't have a match. In fact, there wasn't any tag team matches at SummerSlam, which I was surprised about. And unfortunately, Seth defeated Ambrose. As far as I can go, Ambrose, he actually hit a curb stomp, and I absolutely marked out on Seth Rollins. He hit a curb stomp on him, and I was just like, "Oh, come on!" And unfortunately, Seth hit Dean with the briefcase, and then got the win. Very heel tactic to do. I predicted, as far as I recall, authority interference. That didn't happen, I don't think. I can't really remember it happening anyway, but like I said, it was such a long time ago. I should have really done a SummerSlam predictions roundup thing earlier, but I've just been so busy at work and I haven't had time to myself in the house to record any reviews. So sorry about that, and hopefully I'll improve upon that. Next match, Bray Wyatt versus Chris Jericho. I thought Bray Wyatt was going to win, and he did. Makes sense. Jericho defeated Bray at Battleground, and Eric Rowan and Luke Harper were banned from ringside. Again, as far as I recall, it was a decent match. Still got a bit of ring rust to him, Chris Jericho. I don't really blame him. He's been, with his other projects, so to speak. He hasn't probably had out on his podcast, of course, which I would recommend on some levels, if only to skip all those adverts, because he does a lot of advertising. But the bits where he's actually talking to people, it's very entertaining. Anyway, Bray defeated Chris Jericho. As far as I can call, good match. I can't really go in depth about it because I can't really remember it. I should have done this earlier, but let's move on. Steph Stephanie McMahon versus Brie Bella. Now, now this is one of my bold predictions in the SummerSlam video, was a Nikki Bella heel turn. And I was actually right. It did actually happen. Triple H and... no, Nikki came rushing towards the ring as Stephanie was kind of beating up Brie Bella. And she went in to aid Brie, supposedly, because her and Brie faced off. And then, of course, Nikki clotheslines Brie out of it, and Stephanie gets the pedigree on her and pins her. Yeah, I'm glad to say I finally got one of my bold predictions correct. But I think we could all see it coming, you know, with Brie and Nikki. I mean, it was kind of getting stale, to be fair, and they haven't got much charisma between them, to be honest. You know, divas in general these days, I don't think as exciting as it was, you know. And like I said, Nikki and Brie, they can't really act, really. They're not good actors, and they're not really convincing. But, you know, it was an intriguing thing, and I think it was probably the right thing to do, to break them up. But let's move on. Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton. This was actually a pretty good match for two guys that, I mean, Roman Reigns, he's alright, but he's a bit, in terms of his charisma, he needs to be picking up pace, you know, if he wants to be champion. Yeah, it was a good match. Randy Orton, obviously, you know, he's Randy Orton. He's boring. He's not much charisma either. But he's, you know, they're both terrific athletes, and I think it showed in this match, you know, and kept me certainly on the edge of my seat. Reigns defeated Orton. I think that was my prediction, yeah. And he keeps his winning streak going. Now, finally, we come to the main event. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. And holy hell, I did not expect this to unfold the way it did. I mean, it was a squash match. Let's face it, people. Brock suplexing the bejesus out of John Cena all match. John Cena getting virtually no offense. I mean, I think he had one STF and one attitude adjustment. And it was a massacre. I mean, I really didn't expect that. I thought it was going to be like a pretty even match. You know, usual Cena routine where he gets beaten up and then ultimately hits one AA and one 5-knuckle shuffle for the win. No, that did not happen. And I think I did predict Cena was going to win, because I think it was that they had to do that, you know, because it, you know, I mean, I was absolutely shocked. I was watching it live, and I was going on Vine, telling my friends on Vine about it, and I was just stunned by what I'd seen, because it was just absolutely, Brock hit, I mean, first out of the gate, Brock hits an F5 just with seconds into the match gone. I think, this is not going to be what I thought it was going to be, how I thought the match was going to turn out. And of course it didn't, and it was I'd be lying if I said I wasn't overjoyed at Cena getting the absolute, his arse absolutely kicked, you know. I'm not a massive fan of John Cena, as you probably know by now. Gotten a bit better in recent weeks, you know. He's actually, I'll tell you about it in a bit, but in fact, I could probably segue from this match into the main event at Night of Champions, which I probably will do. But at the moment, yeah, it was a stunning affair, because he just absolutely, Brock absolutely battered John Cena. And of course, you had one little kid in the front row or something that was all night going, "Let's go Cena!" And it was just like, oh, God. It was really annoying. But then, of course, to counteract that, you had Paul Heyman hilariously saying things like, "Here comes the pain!" Whenever Brock did a suplex or an F5. Every single time. Paul Heyman, what a legend. is absolutely brilliant. Right, that's SummerSlam dealt with. Now, in between that and Night of Champions, John Cena, in response to this loss, has developed certain heelish tendencies, threatening to beat up Paul Heyman, who's, only a weird little guy compared to John Cena. That's a very, I don't know about you, but that's a very heelish thing to do. And I can see certain elements creeping back of the John Cena I did kind of like, which was circa 2003 to 2005, with his feud with JBL, where he had a lot of charisma then, but I think the PG era, I'm not saying I blame it entirely on John Cena for being such a, uncharismatic face of the company and everything, and just a very stale character, and people clearly getting fed up with him. I blame WWE for certain parts of that, because I think he wants to bring back his Thugonomics sort of deal, which I loved, by the way. I thought it was hilarious as a rapping heel. You can go check it out yourself on YouTube. Some of his raps are just hilarious. But of course, PG era, you wouldn't allow that sort of language, whatever, all those double entendres in his raps to go ahead. But anyway, I digress. Brock and Cena, in the most recent Raw, I think, they had a pretty big scrap, where, Cena actually, it was a fair fight, and, you can see a Cena emerging which has got a bit more angst about him, a bit more aggression, not like a pandering babyface sort of Cena, which is it. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what's going to happen this match, I'm not going to lie. Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. My prediction is, pay-per-view is called Night of Champions, and I reckon that John Cena will win and get his 16th title, I think, and become the leading WWE title holder of all time or something. I think the previous one I said was Ric Flair. But after he wins, during the match he'll get so badly beaten up by Brock Lesnar that at the end, Seth Rollins, this is my, I think, only bold prediction, to be honest, because I can't really, on this card, there's a lot of obvious outcomes and sort of outcomes which I don't think will be, my prediction-wise, will be too bold to predict, But I think Seth Rollins will come in and cash his money in the bank after Cena has been beaten up by Brock Lesnar to an extent that he can't defend himself. And then I think Seth will win the title. That's my prediction, and I'm going to stick with it. And if I look like a fool because it didn't happen, I don't care. Now, Sheamus versus Cesaro for the United States Championship. Like I said earlier, Cesaro, I think, needs a push. Needs to be the Paul Heyman guy again. I think, personally, Brock Lesnar will leave after being defeated by John Cena. Because he's obviously... I don't think WWE can afford to pay him anymore, to be honest. And he's not doing much. He's just showing up for main events. So I think he's gone again for a while after this. And therefore, Cesaro will rightly return to his place as another Paul Heyman guy. Sheamus versus Cesaro. Sheamus, he's alright. Not too fussed about Sheamus, this seems like really a nothing match to me. I don't know what's going to be gained from it. As far as I can recall, there haven't been really many major feuds of late. I think this is just a sort of warm-up match, to be honest. And I'm predicting Sheamus will retain. Now, Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz. And lately, Dolph Ziggler has been teaming with R-Truth and calling him, and R-Truth has been dubbing himself R Ziggler in response to The Miz. The Miz's sidekick, his crony, so to speak, Damien Mizdow, Poor old Damien Sandow. He just can't catch a break, can he? He's been giving all these awful, awful gimmicks where he's been dressing up as other wrestlers and imitating them. I mean, I don't know what he's done wrong, honestly. But I think I'm far happier with him in this capacity as a Miz's sidekick. You know, at least he's still a jobber. Don't get me wrong, but he's a jobber now with a purpose. He's not just kind of going out in different costumes, just getting jobbed out to whoever every week. So I'm a bit happy with that. R-Truth, haven't seen him he was another lower mid-carder as far as I'm concerned this year. Don't know much about him. I mean, like I said, I only got back into wrestling end of last year and don't know much about him apart from he's apparently good mic skills, little Jimmy. He's been around for a long time as well, Cade Quick. And yeah, I reckon, I don't want to say this because, I mean, Dolph Ziggler has the upper hand because he's won the most amount of matches, I think, going into this Night of Champions. But Miz won recently, and I think Miz will win again. I think something, I don't know, I can see a bit of and I don't know if I want to say this because it's going to be another bold prediction. R-Truth, what does he have to gain from being with Dolph Ziggler? I don't know. Well, anyway, I'll just make it a prediction now because I'm a bit conscious of the time. Miz will win. Unfortunately, I think Miz will win. Paige versus AJ Lee versus... No, hang on. Paige versus AJ Lee versus Nikki Bella. This is so confusing. I don't know where to start. Like, Paige teamed with Nikki Bella last week against AJ Lee and Brie Bella. But before that, AJ teamed with Paige against Nikki and someone else. It's too confusing. Like, I don't know who's face and who's heel in this feud. I don't know if Paige is champion, but I think she might be heel. I think AJ's face. Nikki's definitely heel. I don't know. I think AJ will win this because she's the face out of all three of them. So that's the best I've got, I'm afraid. Mark Henry versus Rusev. Oh, God. Just end it already. Rusev win. There we go. No. Actually, I changed my mind. Mark Henry will win. Rusev has been going on far too long beating people and holding up the Russian flag. Last several pay-per-views, I can remember, Rusev's won all of them and just held the Russian flag. I think Mark Henry will win and there'll be a massive United States flag and there'll be all that garbage going on. Anyway, Usos versus Goldust and Stardust. Newly turned heel Goldust and Stardust. The tag team division is getting so thin, I don't know where to start. I think Ryback and Curtis Axel have gone. And Los Matadores are jobbing every week. Goldust and Stardust, they tried to be face, I think, but they weren't getting over, so they had to turn heel. Whereas the Usos are the kings, obviously. And the poor old Wyatt family, I tell you what, they have really sunk quite low, and I'm very disappointed with that. They're not even in any of the events on here. Not even on, I don't think they're in, they might be in the pre-show match, I don't know, but it's very disappointing what's happened to the Wyatt family. Yeah, I don't know, I can see the Usos winning, really. I think the Usos, they're building them up even more. I reckon the Usos will win. And Goldust and Stardust, we could see a fracturing and Stardust could go back to his old Cody Rhodes persona at some point. I reckon that might be what will happen. Now, Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton. This is the most obvious choice of who's going to win. Randy Orton is going to win and he's going to beat up Chris Jericho so that they will write into the story that Chris Jericho is so injured he won't be able to compete for another month. In which time, he's actually going on tour with Fozzy, being supported by Fury of a Dead Man. That is what's going to happen. He's going on tour. He's said on his podcast he's going on tour in the next couple of months, and this will be his last match. So, It's pretty obvious what's going to happen, really, in my opinion. Randy Orton is going to win, and he's going to beat Chris Jericho up quite badly, I reckon. And that will be it. Jericho will be gone for another number of months, which is a shame, because, I mean, you know, like I said, it's always great to see Chris Jericho. He hasn't been at his best, I don't think, when he's returned. He's very rusty since his return, but I don't really blame him, to be honest. He's not really a regular wrestler anymore. He's more of a part-timer, I would say. Yeah, he's gone. Now, Roman Reigns, this is the final match I'm reading on the card. Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. Now, this is going to be a very interesting one, I think. I don't think Ambrose will have anything to do with it, because he's currently filming a movie, which is a shame, because, I mean, it's the product has got more and more, I wouldn't say unwatchable, but I don't really tune in that much or watch the highlights anymore since Ambrose is gone. Once he comes back, I'll probably watch it again, but, you know, I'm only focusing on pay-per-views mainly. I reckon